Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Doctorate, a career series for postgraduate researchers. This series is part of the That's Me project at Birmingham City University in partnership with the University of Wolverhampton and funded by Research England and the Office for Students. Our aim is to remove barriers faced by postgraduate researchers from global majority communities, those often racialised as ethnic minorities, and to support their success, both in academia and beyond as well. So today's session is titled From Academia to Industry, and we'll be exploring the opportunities and some of the challenges PGRs face when transitioning into industry roles. So over the next hour, we'll hear expert insights on industry, hiring perspectives, and the value that PGRs bring to businesses and organisations, and some of the common barriers as well that they may face. So I'm Dr. Cami Jones, Employer Engagement Officer for That's Me here at BCU, and it's a pleasure to host today's conversation, which will include time at the end for questions and a bit of discussion. So please do share your thoughts in the chat or raise your hand during the Q&A. Our speakers today are Tao Lu, a talent specialist working in the automotive sector with over 9 years of experience in talent acquisition, graduate recruitment, and performance development. Tao is passionate about helping early career professionals transition into meaningful careers and specialises in inclusive hiring strategies. Dr. Maria Kariuki, who during her PhD at the University of Warwick founded the Warwick Black Chemistry Student Society and the Invisible Project to create inclusive academic spaces. And those initiatives sparked systemic reforms and shaped Maria's professional journey, ultimately leading to her fulfilling career supporting others' growth. So welcome both. And with that, I'll hand over to Tao, who will be starting today's session.
All right, thank you, Shami. Just first of all, just want to say everyone can see my slides here.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. Okay, I'm going to kick off then. Okay, my name is Tao, and today that I'm going to do a quick session with you guys to talk about what's the kind of like the mentally and also practical prepare you can do for your industrial career. And hopefully after this session, you can have a good overview about what you should be aware of, what you should be prepared. When you're going to explore yourself into that kind of industry world. Right. All right, here's a quick agenda for my session today. And first of all, just going to do some quick introduction about myself. And also the next bit, I'm just going to talk about some of the industry expectation regarding the skill wise and also what's the trend in there. And also some opportunities in there as well. And the next bit, just going to share with some insights about the recruitment progress, because I've been in this kind of automotive industry for 9 years and been doing the talent acquisition role for kind of 6 years now. So yeah, there's lots of personal experience to share with you guys and also some useful tips. And by the end, definitely because I did a few interviews with some of my friends who've been doing the PhD degree studying, and then they joined the industry world to start their career, including Hua Feng as well. I had an interview with her, so kindly just some very useful practical tips for you guys. All right. Cool. So the slides hasn't been changed.
I can see an introduction slide now. Yeah, I can see them changing. Is anyone else having? Is that?
Yeah, it's going right with me. So
okay.
It's changing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just carry on then. Yeah, myself, tell you that I'm the talent specialist in the automotive industry, and for the past 9 years. And so far, I've been working for the two companies. One called LEVC, the London EV company. We're building the black cabs for the London market, and also another company I have worked for before, which is called Polestar. and which is another electric vehicle manufacturer as well in the UK market. I would say in the past 9 years, my expertise basically in the talent acquisition and also in the talent development, performance management as well. And I would say that I was working on focusing on identifying the top talents, recruiting early careers, for example, the graduate, internship, apprentice, and also support the business in building some inclusive hiring strategy and supporting our employees' career growth as well in the business. And some fun facts about myself. I'm a marathon runner. I would say my first full marathon will be in October this year, so next month, and will be in Yorkshire. So super looking forward to that. And also I was a magician before as well. That's when I was studying in my uni. So yeah. All right. Oh, sorry, it's going bad. All right, cool. Next slide. Just want to quickly show some data. I did some research, and I would say that's all some PhD graduates who graduated in the 2008 and also 2010. I would say that from the data that you can look at the pie chart in the middle. We can see from there. Basically, 70% of the graduates they have left the higher education sectors. And also, I would say the only 30% they stay in there. And this data basically they tracking the graduates since that year they graduated, and they've been tracking that for 10 years till the 2022. Till the 2020. So they've been tracking the graduates for 10 years, 12 years, and they currently do some understanding where they go in for their career. All right, just give you some rough idea here. And based on that pie chart we had in the last slides, definitely we can see some reasons behind that. So why people stay in the academia, why people choose to leave the academia, go for the industry careers. I would say for those people staying in the academia, definitely you get more resources and more time to do your independent researchers. And you can secure more funding for your long-term project as well. And also you would have the chance to mentor your students, I would say. And for the non-academia, the recent overviews as well. For the career progression, for higher either the income or the benefits. And also, that's something you need to highlight that if you want to switch role, between the industries, that will be easier as well. For example, I would say the most of talents in my industry, automotive, definitely some of them they are the engineers, and one day if they want to switch to for example, the aerospace, they can do that as well. So because they got a lot of transferable skills for that industry as well. All right. And definitely, in the UK market, there's some shifting happening here. You can see, the AI data scientists been quite popular in past years. And but another thing we need to look at as well, for example, some traditional industries, like automotive manufacturing, is going down. And then I would say that they're still in there, but I would say the most of the funding and also all the plants being relocated mainly to the Asian market. And also in the UK market, there's something you need to look at, that's technological distribution and also economic pressures in there, especially post-COVID. And also some policy shifts as well. And I would say the most latest one will be that one in this July. And I'm going to talk about that later. And also the talent shortage that's still in the market, especially for the I would say for the STEM majors, for example, like science, technology, engineering, mathematics, etc. There's still some opportunities for the PhD graduates for sure. All right, and if we look at what's the skill demands as well, that's in the industry world, and I would say the first of all, definitely the communication skills in there. I understand that as the independent researcher, sometimes you probably just work with your own, in front of the desk. I would say in the industrial world, that's more focused on the communications, collaborations in there, and also for the projects and the stakeholder management as well. And definitely, the pace will be slightly different as well in the industry. Because we got a lot of KPIs, milestones, deadline to meet here. So you need to get used to. You need to make yourself basically be more adaptive and also get used to that pace, your team, your business. And also some industry standards like the two softwares you need to be aware of. They might be slightly different to what the software you've been using for your research. All right, and also definitely some AI tools as well. And that's been quite impressive conversation I had with our design team last week. When we're talking about some vacancies, they've been talking about in the past few months, and lots of talents in the market. They start to use the AI to do some modeling or drawing for the car, for the exterior, interior, etc. So I would say even in the design world, there are lots of people start to use that. So yeah, just be aware of that. Next bit, I will see my favorite bit, some recruitment insights, and the bit definitely going to talk about something around the visa. Cindy, I understand most of you guys probably from an international background, and also the recruitment timeframe as well, and definitely share some useful information about job application, how to do your CV, and how to attend an interview, essay day, etc. All right, first bit about the visa. And first of all, I just want to let you guys what the sponsor license requirement looks like for employer. Basically, for the employer, they need to have obtain a sponsor license before they issue the course for you. The course stands for the certificate of the sponsorship. And I would say the business for themselves, they need to apply for their license to enable themselves to sponsor you as a skilled worker. And also for themselves as a business, they need to comply with home office regulations. And also they need to do some regular record keeping and also reporting duties as well. And also, I will see some key updates this year for the visa requirement as well, especially for the skilled worker visa. I would say the first of all, the English language proficiency be increased slightly. I think from R2F level 3 to R2F level 6. That's equivalent to the bachelor degree. And also the salary threshold as well that's been increased as well. I think it's been increased to 41,700 now. Definitely, as a PhD graduate, you can get some discount from that going rate. It's roughly 80 to 90%, depends on the major you're studying. And definitely there's a short list. I would say because the changes regarding that education, minimum education being updated, and I would say that the shortlist it was roughly 180 roles being removed from this list. And also the cost-wise, they've been keep going up in past years. And just give you a quick idea, as did some research by myself that for now, for employer, they need to spend roughly 8,700 if they want to sponsor a new skilled worker visa to one of the candidates. And just for the first 3 years, I would say after that, for you to secure your IOR by end of the 5 years, 10 years routine, they still need to spend a little bit more. And also some complexity and restrictions in there as well for the visa application here. definitely an obvious restriction will be that if you've been responsible by the employer A and you cannot work for the employer B, let's say if they cannot sponsor your visa. All right. And the recruitment time frame here, just want to give you some very quick idea. I would say I list 3 examples here for the graduate scheme, for the internship, and also for the apprentice. I would say the quite obvious here, which is for the graduate and the internship, you usually need to start your application 1 year before you actually start your role. And but for the apprentice, usually we open the opportunity, open the role in early of the year. For example, my business just finished the recruitment for the vehicle technician apprenticeship, and we opened the recruitment since this June, and we made the offer literally 2 days ago, and then they're going to start October. So yeah, that's give you some rough idea what the apprenticeship looks like. And I would say that for most of you guys as PhD graduates, the graduate scheme will be more relevant because most bit in my industry, the OEMs, automotive companies, we run the graduate scheme mainly, and also I understand for some the accounting companies like the PwC, etc., they are doing the graduate scheme every year as well. All right, next bit just quickly go through some job sites. I would say on the top 3, definitely you can see they are mainly for the academic roles, and we got some another few job sites. They are focused on the industry roles as well, and I would say the LinkedIn definitely been very, very popular in past years. And as a recruiter myself, being on LinkedIn every day as well. We're doing lots of headhunting down there. And also we're posting, I would say, most of our vacancies on the LinkedIn as well. So make sure yourself create a LinkedIn account and get your LinkedIn profile updated all the time. All right. Okay, next bit, just quickly go through the CV. CV, I would say you can see it's a piece of paper, but I would say that just a few tips you need to be aware of. First of all, you need to make sure that being tailored to the role, or we can say tailored to certain industry. I would say that's the most common mistake for many candidates. They just have one version of the CV, but they got probably 50, 100 roles to submit their application. But I would say that you need to kindly categorize all the roles you're going to apply, and then you need to tell your CV be more relevant to that role you're going to apply as well. And just give you a quick example, if you're going to apply for an engineer role but you got a background in other area, for example, the manufacturing, and basically you just need to move what's your expertise, what's your experience for the engineering, move them to the top if you're going to apply for an engineering role, and also minimize the bit you mentioned about the manufacturing bit. That's just a quick example, and also that highlights the skills you have in that area as well. And yeah, I would say kind of cover the transferable skills, and but also if you moving from the academia world to the industrial world, the transferable skills is more about what do they need, and you definitely can read that from the CV, read from the JD, the job description, from the job advert, to see what they have listed in there, what's the skills they need for this role. And I would say you can get your CV be being tailored, be more relevant to the skills they're looking for. Definitely you must have the skill first, and then you kind of prioritize the skills on your CV, and then you submit your application. I would say you can get a higher opportunity to go for the interview, and also definitely impact and outcomes as well. I would say that's for the achievement you have had. That's when you were doing your studying and doing your researching, and make sure that everything you list in your CV that's being measurable, and also that's being visual as well, if possible, and to highlight what's your impact for short term, for long term, etc. And also make sure your CV always transparent and clear. And you need to be aware of like the CV just a ticket for you to get into the interview room, but you won't be able to put everything, just some piece of that's A4 paper. So I would say like the interviewer or the hiring manager definitely wants to understand you more, let's say in the interview, and rather than just on the CV. So you need to put some proper highlights and yeah, just shorten that if necessary as well. And also simplify some academic language as well. Let's you need to make sure that both hiring manager and also recruiters can understand what you've been talking about. And also let's use some language, I would say more industrial as well. So let's make sure that when the recruiter they do the CV screening, that they can say, okay, here's the skill we want. Definitely another thing you can refer to, which is the JD. Again, you can see what's the language they put in there, and you can just refer to that and see if you're talking about the same thing, just use the language they are using on their JD. All right. All right, next another big piece of that, which is the interview and the assessment center day. And the assessment center day basically is like the whole day event. In there, they can include lots of different activities. For example, they can have interview, group exercise, and also presentation in one day. But that day will be quite intense for you. I would say that because you're going to do everything back to back, basically. And for the interview, I would say just slightly, if you only be invited to the interview, that will be slightly easier, I would say, because usually the interview takes you like 1 hour or 1.5 hour maximum. And regarding the interview, I would say that's some very useful tool or approach will be something called STAR approach. Plus, you jump into the interview and you will be asked by the hiring manager and also the HR for some technical questions, behavioral questions. And in any of these questions, you would be good to follow that STAR approach, STAR, which stands for the situation, task, and action and result. So basically, from any of your answer to any of the question they're giving you, you can start from what's the context and what's been going on here, and then what's the tasks you've been asked to do, and after that, what's the actions you have taken from there, and step 1, 2, 3, and also what's the result from there, what's the outcomes from there. Again, make sure that's measurable and visible and understandable for everyone in the interview room. And by the end, that's one more thing I would suggest you to think about that as well as if you're going to do that again, and what you can improve. And yeah, just in that scenario, if you look back, what you can improve, what you learned from there. So that's something I would say someone in the room, they would like to hear from you as well. All right. And let's build group exercise. Group exercise can be in lots of different the formats. For example, you can be asked to do some case studies, and also they can ask you to do some problem solving exercises, and also some role play as well, and also some brainstorming as well. I would say in any of this kind of group size, I would say all the assessors in the room or the interviewer in the room, they've been focused on assessing you the leadership within the team, your communication skills, and your listening skills as well, and definitely your influencing skills as well. I would say probably you need to do a little bit more practice before you really jump on for a group exercise. And probably you can sit down in the library with your classmates. You can just pick a topic from the internet, and then you can start your group exercise there. And but just please make sure you talk. I can see so many applicants that they been in the room, and it was a small panel, basically, probably only 4, 5 candidates in the room. But I always can see that's roughly 1 or 2 candidates. They've been sitting there and stay quiet, don't talk too much. I would say for that kind of situation, that's you every second you're losing the opportunity. That's definitely you cannot be that rush jumping into the topic they're talking as well. That you need to find the best timing and give some that's constructive ideas, etc. And make sure you're doing some. I would say you have some contribution to the team. All right. And also for the psychometric test, that's another thing that you can practice a lot online. I was just one website called they are the provider as well online, the SHL. So they got a lot of sample for the tests you can take for free. So just have a look at that. And also presentation, I would say that's I believe most of the guys been doing the presenting that's lots of times. So kindly let's make sure you have proper dressing and also you been doing some rehearsal and in a good structure, presenting. And some skill tests, that's only for some specific roles. For example, we've been doing lots of Excel tests for the finance roles. Just an example here. All right, the next bit, just want to share some very useful practical tips that from the interview I have had. And sorry?
No, sorry to interrupt. Just for the sake of time keeping, I've got to be really strict. So I'm going to say
I'm nearly
we've got.
there.
Is
I'm
that
nearly
okay?
there.
Just a few more minutes. Thank you.
It's
Carry
my
on.
last slide. Yeah. Okay, no problem. All right. And I would say some very useful practical tips for you. I would say first of all, start yourself a little bit earlier because as you can see, the recruitment time frame that usually for most of the graduate opportunity or the internship, you need to start your application at 1 year before. And also start earlier, not only let's say you're going to the market explore the opportunities, but also building the connections with the expert in that area, in that industry as well. I would say that you can do some attending some the conference or some public events there, try to build some connections with someone already been working in that kind of industry or that company will be quite beneficial. And also be proactive. I would say sometimes you even can speak with your professors to see, let's say, if they got any connections with some, the leaders or the experts in that industry, and they probably can help you to build the connection with them as well. That will be beneficial for your opportunity exploring in the industry. And definitely, you need to focus on that communication and collaboration skills improvement as well. And also help yourself to understand workplace cultures. That's the best way to do it. Simple way to do as well. Let's say you probably can go to the company's career site, find out what's their company values, guiding principles. You can find what's the working styles, etc. And yeah, just be prepared for the interview and the ACD. And also definitely the fast-paced, you need to make sure yourself getting ready for that and also goal-oriented. And they always got some deadlines for your tasks, so you need to be aware of that. And the last bit, just make sure you got yourself prepared for your practical skills as well as, and especially for some softwares and the AI tools, etc. All right, that's the end of my bit, and here's my LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me, we can discuss a little bit further in certain areas you're interested. So that's it. All right.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much, Tao. We can take questions. Yeah, that was great. Really, really insightful. And we can take some questions at the end after Maria's presentation. So Maria, do you want to share your screen now? Is that okay? Also, if any of the audience has got any questions in the meantime, please do put them in the chat as well, and we can take those up shortly. Thanks. You're still on mute, Maria.
Let's try that again. Can you see the screen? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me to this career series. My presentation today will be focused on equality or equity, diversity and inclusion. And I'm just going to kind of touch base on why that is useful for your career progression and how that will apply in your research journey. Before I do so, I will just briefly introduce my institute. So I work for the British Geological Survey. BGS, that's the acronym, is a research institute that operates under the Natural Environment and Research Council. So most of you should be aware that all of UK research is funded and operated under UKRI, and under that umbrella is multiple research councils that you may probably fall under. And within those councils are the different research institutes. So here's where we sit. So we are a geoscience institution, and we focus on providing geoscientific data. Our current strategy for 2023 to 2028 has 3 priority areas. One's the decarbonization and resource management challenge area, and that is centered around the need to lower carbon emissions and find sustainable energy resources. We've got the environmental change, adaptation, and resilience team, and they're quite focused on making society more resilient to the climate change and the impact of climate change. So they do a lot of characterization of water resources, of soils and the likes, and how does human activity impact that. And the last is our multi-hazards and resilience team. So they look at different hazards events like volcano eruptions, tsunamis. They also look at how those different events interact. So multi-hazards is the idea that more than one event can happen at the same time. In some cases, they trigger each other or they're an after effect. So for example, flooding can lead to landslides, and then the landslides can cause further damage. And that group is essentially prioritizes how do we become more prepared for hazards and how do we better understand their impact on social life. So each of these research themes or challenge areas, as we call them, they have a priority area, and hopefully you'll pick up on a theme while looking at those priority areas. And before I reveal that, I will now just briefly share my career journey so far. I started off with my undergrad in forensic science. And after that, so forensic science is essentially any science that has the law applied. And it could be not just science, it could be business, forensics accounting, anything you do, any knowledge that you have, how do you apply that in a legal perspective? And when I was doing forensic science, I got quite interested in the characterization side of it. So got interested in drug analysis and the types of instruments that are used to do that. And that led me to doing a master's degree on analytical instrumentation. So this was quite analytical chemistry. And within that time, we did different research projects over a few weeks. And I ended up in a polymer chemistry group. And that led to me receiving a PhD position in that group, still looking at analytical chemistry, but focused within a new group. I've never done polymers in my life at that point, didn't understand the chemistry behind it, but ended up working in this very different group. And around 2020, as most of you might remember, the Black Lives Matter movement happened, and that really started to challenge my perspective. I think up until that point, I had kind of was coasting through my uh, academic or studying journey. I faced a lot of challenges, and in my mindset, I was just like, just get on with it, just try and survive, essentially. And it got to that point where I started to think, what can I do to make things better, not just for myself, but for the people who are in similar situations, or students like me who will be um, about to embark on a journey that was quite difficult at that point, very isolating that I felt. And it was at a point, as Cami described at the start, I started to work on different diversity and inclusion initiatives. The first was forming a society that supported Black chemistry students. We were very few in the university or in the department, and that made for sometimes a very isolating situation, especially in certain PhD groups. If you don't have a big team or a supportive team, that could be very isolating. And that also led to me applying for a grant to run a project called Invisible, which was a play on the word that you are no longer invisible, which is kind of how I felt during my career journey, and wanted to create the spaces where researchers from marginalized backgrounds like myself were visible and given that dedicated space to share their research. And then, yeah, my PhD funding ran out, but based on the relationships that I'd started to form with the department, I was made aware of a research assistant job. So the university is looking to build a new science hub, and a huge part of that is the design of the building and how inclusive that building is. And so I was offered a short-term, I believe it was just a year role on inclusive, doing research on how the building can be inclusive in terms of the spaces available to students, to staff. It's things like we have working parents who will be coming back from leave. They need, for example, some mothers or parents will need lactation rooms, and all of that has to be factored in at the very start. And once that ran out, I then, at that point, had actually submitted my thesis, and I was ready to look for a job market. And I came across the British Geological Survey, which again was furthest thing removed from what I ever imagined. And it's meant to be an interactive, quick question in this at this point, but given that we're doing it recording, I just wanted to ask, given the background of my institute and my career journey, where did you think that I would be right now in my current role? And if I was myself a few years ago, I would have said I would be working in a pharmaceutical company doing some analysis. But I've actually ended up in a geoscience company and implementing their diversity initiatives. And I'll talk to you in a little bit why this is important and why such a role is actually being um, more and more of these roles are coming up in different industry and research jobs. So, quick question around why is diversity, equity, and inclusion rarely relevant in research and academia? So, I think this might be slightly obvious sometimes, but it's just good to re-highlight that without having diverse teams and a diversity of thought, then your research is unlikely to be representative and accurate. You're also not likely to attract and retain talent if you're only seeking the same people. And if your environments or working environments are not inclusive, then you get a lot of staff turnover. We see a lot of people leaving. I've heard countless stories of people working in research teams that were so hostile that they chose to leave, and that is a huge impact to the company when you have to keep hiring or you lose really serious talent. Something Tao mentioned before, your research outcomes or the outcome of your work is something really important in selling yourself and marketing yourself when you're looking for jobs. And diversity and inclusion is at the center of that. So people want research outcomes or the work that you do, it has to have a benefit to the society in a positive way. And diversity and inclusion is a huge aspect of making sure that that is possible. It also impacts how the public views you as a company or you as a researcher and builds confidence. A lot of times you may have seen, some of you may have to interact on clinical trials or surveying the public. And if they don't have the trust in your research, then that will impact you because you won't be able to get participants. It comes back again to the quality of work that you're going to be putting out. If your work was never representative or accurate or has a good impact, then your work is not going to be of good quality. Diversity as well, again, thinking about that diversity of thought, it brings innovation and creativity because people are able to fill in the gaps for each other. Something one person wouldn't consider, the other person will be able to consider, and the two coming together, that collaboration allows you to come up with solutions that are actually innovative. And lastly is economic growth or just in essence, economy. Poor research impacts your economy, and good research, as you know, will encourage economic growth. And I just wanted to highlight some real life situations of how the lack of inclusion of diversity and inclusion in research and academia has had negative effects. I think maybe these are some very famous cases. You've probably come across them before, but we've seen research around, I think it was only until 2024 that it was mandated in some countries that car companies have to use both male and female crash test dummies to test the safety of the cars. It was found for a long time that women's dimensions were not factored because they were only using male dummies. And that led to a lot of women being more affected in car crashes and more likely to be injured with things like whiplash, and in some cases, unfortunately, passing away. AI, again, Tao's mentioned AI, it's changing the world, and it is a good thing when used in the right way and when it has been used representative data sets. So I've seen a lot of controversies with AI softwares like Amazon's recognition software. The LAPD in America had a similar system called Predpol that was inaccurately characterizing people of color as criminals, and that was because it had not been tested to recognize different faces. And this one I always find quite, no offense to Nike, I love Nikes, but this was quite of a situation again. So they released these amazing shoes that you don't need to bend down or tie your laces, or it's really useful for people with mobility impairments. But when they released these shoes that they heavily advertise as for people with disabilities, they released a limited version of the shoes, and that means that they were bought as some of you, any sneakerhead, I'm not a sneakerhead, but those who are, you know that when new versions of shoes come out, everyone's hyped for them. They get a lot of people buying them and then reselling them at higher costs. And this is what happened in the situation, meaning that the people that were actually designed for were not able to afford or get access to the pair of shoes that they needed. Recently, there's a UK Paralympian who's also shared her challenges around buying single shoes. So as a Paralympian who has one leg, they're not able to just buy single shoes. And it is a policy that discriminates. And this is something we come across called indirect discrimination. And that's where you apply the same thing to everyone, and the consequence of that is you end up excluding certain people. And this is a huge thing. It's actually legally something that is required for companies and institutions to avoid and to make proactive measures to not do that. And just bringing it back to my company, the British Geological Survey, as you can see, taking it back to some of our research themes, hopefully you picked up on that social impact. So all the priority areas requiring water security, making hazardous events, people more resilient to the events, it has a people element. And based on that, we recognize the need for diversity and inclusion as a strategic pillar to deliver in our research and science. And those two pillars are down here: public engagement. How do we involve the people who we want to have our research is based on? Without that, we're then going to create solutions that are ineffective. And also bringing it back to that talent acquisition and creativity and innovation. To do that, you need a diverse and skilled workforce. So as you can see, this is just an example of my company, but very many companies realize that diversity is needed to achieve their goals and are building it into their strategies. So that will inadvertently impact how they recruit and the talent they're looking for. So in the research space, thinking about how is EDI integrated, how is it being enforced quite regularly at the moment? Research funding is a huge area where EDI is becoming a requirement and a consideration that people must make when they apply for grants. The same when companies are applying for government tenders. So like myself, we bid for a lot of contracts from the government. We also apply for a lot of research grants. And in my day-to-day role, I work constantly with the scientist to design a grant or a research proposal that embeds good practices of EDI. It thinks about the team that's applying. It thinks about the people the research is going to impact. It thinks about the ethics. And without these considerations, you're more and more likely to not receive the funding because it's becoming a criteria that grants have been assessed on. And you might come across in the future words like social value and research culture, equality impact, the theory of change. So all of this are things that I think people tend to neglect when they think, oh, I'm just going to put in my idea. It's a great idea. It's a science. Science doesn't need or research doesn't need to care about anything else but the research itself. But actually, in most cases, you will find that that will lead to reviewers rejecting your application. And in all the slides, hopefully they'll be shared with you. There's lots of reading resources that I've tried to add there that help you understand how to embed good EDI practices in the different areas that we're discussing. So EDI is also a legal obligation. In the UK, we have the Equality Act, and that act protects people from discrimination and harassment. And because of that, companies are legally required to ensure that they treat people fairly and that there's equitable access of opportunities. By that, I mean is that they put in measures that considers people's challenges and they put in the solutions that allow people to gain the same access of opportunities. Failing to comply has led to some really serious legal implications for companies and economic implications for companies. Just thinking about the examples I shared earlier, if you think about Nike and the loss of income that they've lost and the loss of public trust. So these are day-to-day situations that are becoming more imperative to companies to address proactively and not wait for a situation to happen. I've highlighted some few cases here, I think, which are quite landmark cases that perhaps in your spare time you can Google, but just a disclaimer, some of them are of a sensitive nature, so please do proceed with discretion. And lastly, you'll find that a lot of institutions, and including higher education, especially higher education, they require to be accredited so that they have the reputation that is required to be seen as people operating under high ethical and professional standards. I've listed a few, but there's so many different accreditation schemes that are EDI related. You may have heard of Athena Swan, which is around gender equality, or race equality charter. A key one is the Research Excellence Framework, which ensures that all higher education research is of a good and ethical quality. And all of that, all these accreditations require best EDI practices to be highlighted. Again, thinking about the culture, the demographic of your students, the demographic of your staff, that is all things that will impact your accreditation process. So bringing it back to you, how does EDI affect your career? And We'll start with the basics. Recruitment, that is the first stage of your career process. It's being hired. And it is because of the progress that's being made in the space around EDI that jobs and recruitment processes are becoming more inclusive and equitable. Just going to share some few best practice examples that are implemented in more and more companies, including my company and UKRI. So the research councils that fall under that, these are practices that are being implemented. They carefully monitor the language in the job descriptions. There's been a lot of research around how certain gendered words, like asking for someone who's assertive or someone who's a supporter or supporting roles, they're very gender coded and they can inadvertently exclude certain people. There's research around the fact that women are less likely to apply if they don't feel that they meet almost 90% of the criteria, versus men who feel that if they meet at least half of them, they're confident enough to apply or are happy to apply. And all this is in the way the job description has been curated, and this is becoming something that a lot of companies are paying close attention. There's lots of websites that are training on how to write applications so that they do not put people off. Equality statements are being included. You'll hopefully get to see some of that in the jobs that you apply for. You'll see that companies are asking people who have taken career breaks, people who think they have equivalent experience apply. Don't be afraid. They're asking for people who are underrepresented. They look at their data and say, okay, we're really missing. We're short of staff who have certain disabilities, and they want to encourage people that they're looking for you. So if you do see that, do take that as your sign to apply. Don't feel that you don't meet it. A company that's publishing that wants you and is looking to support you in the best ways that they can. Other things that we do is we try and avoid a long list of criteria. I don't know how many, if you've started job searching, but when I was job searching, that was a big turnoff when I saw like 20 criteria. It's sometimes quite unnecessary. And so we do try and focus on the criteria that are absolutely essential to you completing the role, and less focus on the things or the skills that you can pick up or be trained in the job to complete that role. Another really cool change has been the introduction of narrative CVs. So narrative CVs, unlike traditional CVs, give you the chance to contextualize your skills. So for example, they might ask you how has different challenges impacted the way you perceive a certain role. They might ask you, what have you been doing during summer breaks? It's things that people don't consider. So for example, when I was applying for my master's degree, I mentioned that I was doing a part-time job, and that became something that was used to muck me up, the fact that I was actively trying to develop myself. And I was able to explain that, whereas traditional CVs would have only considered that I've been in school XYZ and would not care about the things that have been done in the interim. So do you use that to your advantage? Think about your lived experiences. Has there been anything in your life that you've gone through that you think has prepared you or has helped you learn a certain skill, even if it wasn't taught within a classroom or your research environment? Hiring panels being huge changes to hiring panels. So people want diversity of thought, opinion, and backgrounds. It is a green flag if you see a very diverse panel. You don't want to see a panel that's the same gender. In some cases, it's unavoidable, but you want to see that diversity of thought regardless. People who are able to appreciate differences in others. A lot of hiring panels and managers are being required to complete EDI training before they can take up those roles, such as bias awareness, inclusive communication. It's a whole area. It comes down to simple things as how someone shake your hands. Is that even necessary? Like in the past, you'd hear that people have been not offered the job because they sounded too timid or they didn't shake someone's hand the right way. And it's all this biases that has been unpicked in the EDI training. The recruitment team is also trained to provide reasonable adjustments and be able to tailor interviews in a way that is supportive to the candidate. We don't want you to fail. We want to see your personality. We want to understand you as a person, and any support that is reasonable in that case, it means, is it easy to implement, affordable? There's a few things to be considered, but in most cases, companies are more willing to implement these, and don't be afraid to ask them. A really cool thing that my company did is providing questions in advance. This happened to me during my interview. I was able to then direct my thoughts in highlighting the right examples during the interview process, and that's made a huge difference in the hiring and recruitment process. And now thinking about you, how does EDI come back to you? So EDI themed questions are becoming an essential criteria, and something that is important is that you have to demonstrate all the essential criteria that are listed. When you're looking at your applications, everything that says essential, please provide an evidence to that situation. And in this cases, we've seen in the past people overlook that EDI question. They're like, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I do this, it doesn't apply. And in most cases, that means they've not been shortlisted for the next stage. And so it is now very important to be able to demonstrate how you've been involved in EDI, or how do you align with the company's values. Tao mentioned that at the end of his talk. It's really important to understand what the company places values in. For example, here's some questions that we might ask you for my companies. How do you give an example of how you respected someone of a different background or a different opinion to yours, and how did you work to understand the perspective of others? So these are things that slowly entangle as you start to think that, okay, my research journey is not just about me. In my case, if I was in the chemistry lab, it's not just about me being in the lab. It's about my interactions with others. It's about how do I make that environment a inclusive environment. And thinking about if you're already in a role, career progression and promotion schemes, always at this stage, they always embed EDI as a criteria for your promotion. So I just wanted to highlight some examples. For example, if you're being assessed on your teamwork management and leadership, so here's a criteria that my company would ask you. Describe how you've tried to bring out the best out of people and resolve conflict, and that experience comes in your involvement in being open-minded, in immersing yourself in situations that are uncomfortable, but you want to make those situations better. If you think about professional activity, they want to see what participation have you done in a corporate way. So this could be in your universities. Have you been involved in any student networks? Have you been involved in initiatives that the university is running? All of those things will apply when you're looking for promotion. And a lot of people as well, you'll see, maybe you've noticed with some of your professors, they have to do a lot of public engagement at the moment and outreach, and those are now used as promotion criteria. How have you communicated with the public? How have you tried to and help the public understand and be involved in your research? How are you mentoring others? I found this picture, which I thought was really cool in terms of how people think about promotion. I'll skip over this, but it's just at the bottom is skills that people overlook, and at the top is skills that they often think are what is only required. Here's another example of behaviors, EDI themed, that companies are looking for. They want to see that you're a person of integrity, or in our case, UKRI, again, manages all research. They want to see that you're contributing to a culture of safety and trust and inclusivity, and all that brings it back to EDI. So hopefully I have convinced you that you need to be getting involved in different initiatives in diversity and inclusion in any way it presents itself. So here's some quick tips is always be curious and proactive. Don't wait for things. Don't do things just because they impact you. Do things because you want to make people's lives a bit better. And a huge tip is familiarize yourself with what institutions or your departments are doing in the EDI space. There's lots of working opportunities to join the committees in those groups and the networks. Thinking about my journey, this is how I've established networks. I learned how to manage funds and grants and negotiate, and all of that led to my current role and being able to secure that. And at the very end, I've shared some resources that I think are useful in the research space. And yeah, that is the end of my talk, and I'll be very happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was really, really amazing. Just lots of great insights there, which um, I mean, we've ran a little bit over, and I'm not sure how everyone is for time at the minute, but I mean, it was just such a fantastic session. So first of all, I just want to thank you both, Tao and Maria, for, such great presentations. I'll say for anyone that does need to leave, thank you for joining. And can I just say a reminder to please complete our survey form, which I've put the link to that in the chat. But for the sake of the recording, what I'd like to do is just double check if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask to either of our presenters. And if not, I've just got a really sort of quick fire question that I could ask you both, because you pretty much covered everything that I'd wanted to ask. I think you both sort of covered those topics. But firstly, is there anyone in the audience that's got a question? Huafeng, yeah?
Yes, a simple question. So first of all, thank you both. There's too much information actually, but both are very, very useful. So I just want to know like a simple question from the industry, like the CV you are talking about is normally like 1 page. Is it like that? The question for Tao.
All right, so I would say that's as Maria also mentioned, that just make sure the CV is conscious and also in a proper size. I would say that's usually if you think you got lots of things, just try to manage everything in 2 pages. Into
In
A4
two
paper, in
pages.
2 pages. That would be what's
Okay.
best. I would say that for most of the roles, unless you just a lot of if you apply for some academic roles, and I would say if you want to put a lot of publications information on that, and definitely you can extend that a little bit further. But I would say 2 to 3 pages. That's the maximum.
Yeah, because for the academic CVs, it's like normally it's like 3, even more. But yeah, I just want to understand for the industry standard. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
That's great. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, thanks, Ellie. It really was a great session, so much detail. I've just had a request to share the presentation, so I'll be able to send those out by email if that's okay with you both. So the question I had, firstly, then I'll ask for Tao, because we were just talking about sort of recruitment practices, and I wondered what, from an employer's perspective, what makes a PhD, postgrad researcher kind of stand out in recruitment processes?
All right, that's a very good question. I would say I would say definitely some skills that I would say the PhD graduates they have, and also they have their own advantages in the market. I would say the very top one will be if you find some proper way to present yourself in a more logical thinking way, especially in your answer to any questions in your, I would say, recruitment process there. And think about the question, give a little more comprehensive answer, give a very step by step and in a logical way. And also some others, I would say, make yourself stand out. Some, I would say, from the other graduates they don't have, which is how to present your academic achievements in there. I would say for the most of the graduates, when they graduated, they probably just done a dissertation or some certain essays. But as a PhD graduate, you just a certain achievement, or for example, you've been collaborating with some companies already, been doing some projects. That's something you should highlight as well. That's just some employers, they consider that as a part of your practical or the, I would say, the industrial experience in there. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tao. And for you, Maria, I was just interested in how you kind of talked about more broadly around the importance of EDI in research and academia. And I was just thinking about for candidates from the global majority specifically, what additional challenges they may face and what kind of support's available within perhaps your organization specifically.
Absolutely. And before I do, sorry, I'm just going to jump into your first question about the advantage of PhD.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's the transferable skills you get out of the PhD as well. So hopefully through my journey, you've seen that I've jumped through different careers. I've gone through forensics to chemistry to now geoscience company. And all of that is different research, different areas, but it was the skills that we required working alone, working independently, working as a team. Those are the things that employers are really passionate about because you're all smart people. You can pick up new topics very easily, you know. So yes, I'd also say try and market yourself in that way. Um, as for support available, so there's never been a better time to go and look for opportunities right now. There's a lot of awareness. We've gone through years of that evidence being built up about the challenges being faced by students from different backgrounds. And now we're at a stage of change, a stage of companies wanting to be proactive and making sure that for lack of a better part, the sins of the past are being addressed. So, for example, if I think about like disability, for example, there's a lot of interest around neurodiversity. People think differently, and even the example of being given questions in advance, that is in consideration of that, the fact that you may not process the question in the same way, and sometimes getting the questions in advance allows you to take that and marinate instead of being put on the spot. Other situations, for example, my company does a lot of field work. We are aware that people from different backgrounds may face harsh environments in terms of how people receive them. So we proactively take steps in our risk assessment forms to ensure that that is considered, that this is, for example, a person who is going to a very rural area. How do we ensure that their identity is protected, that they have the right support documents that shows why they're there? We've got in the past questions about like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, you know, and it's as easy as having the right uniform, having a letter to say I'm so and so, this is my research, and that protects them. We have reporting schemes. We have, you know, measures in place where someone's on standby if you're in a situation that is of danger. And a really cool thing, I'm sorry, I'm waffling, the last example is the NERC Research Council, one of our sister research institute is the Antarctic Survey. People are stationed in Antarctica for months. You can't just pop by to the shop and be like, oh, hey, I need this. And one thing that came up is periods in field work where people don't have access to the right facilities. And so it's research like that that is making sure you as a person, your well-being is protected, and that allows you to best to conduct your research in a very productive way because you're not being impacted by the other things that have been overlooked in the past. So
That's great. Thank you so much. Again, both of you, really great discussion. And unfortunately, I really am going to have to leave it there. So for today, I will share contact details if that's okay with you both. And, you know, the attendees and anyone watching can get in touch if they've got any more questions. We could just go on and on, really, couldn't we? One thing I will say, the session's been recorded, as I've said. So I'm going to put the link here to our career series webpage where you can find that once it's uploaded, and there's other discussions that we've had as well, and also a request that, you know, if you're both happy for this to be made available, we kind of make it available in podcast form and release it that way as well. So is that okay with you both? It will be just a sort of edited version of this conversation that we've had today. So, and
only if you get my good side.
It's an audio podcast actually,
okay.
So but yes, you look amazing. It's great for the website as well. So thank you everyone, and I hope to see you again really soon, and have a great day and weekend. Thank you.
Good weekend.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.